All right, man, we're gonna transition into your list. And I had not heard of this story and still don't know anything about it, but it's the NYC shooter on a 33rd floor. Explain what's going on to me.
So
Explain what's
you're
going on to
asking
me.
me to explain. I don't know that I can because I don't fully understand this. But the shooter in New York City, who I is it confirmed he killed himself? Yeah, so he killed himself on the 33rd floor of that building on Park Avenue. A lot of people immediately came out and they're like 33. The CIA's laughing. Of course it was 33. I've seen 10 different explanations for why 33 is supposedly some conspiratorial deal. Um, the main one was that that's apparently the highest degree of the Freemasons, is the
Yes,
33rd level or something.
correct.
Another guy, like, this is, I mean, if you're tweeting like this, please, I beg of you, seek some help. 33 equals 3 times 11, product of two prime numbers. Semi-prime, it has exactly four factors, 1, 3, 11, 33. 33 is part of the 33rd triangular number sequence, some of the first 33 natural numbers. Jesus was crucified at 33. Scottish Rite branch of Freemasonry has 33 as the highest degree. Like, all these people just making up these reasons that 33 is supposedly some sort of conspiracy. I don't get it. I don't understand why killing yourself on the 33rd floor would be some sort of deal like that. The story I heard was that he got on the wrong
I was
elevator.
gonna say, I thought he
Yeah.
got on the wrong elevator. He's trying to
Yeah.
go to the NFL
Yeah,
headquarters.
so whatever. But yeah, there were
I think it's called apophenia. Apophenia. Pretty sure I'm fucking that up, but it's a condition where I don't say condition, but it is a I don't even know how to categorize it, but it's when people see patterns everywhere that don't necessarily exist. Like I had people tell me all the time, like I don't get to the career stats, but like I was a industry plant because I had certain stats that had these numbers, and all these numbers are correlated, and it ends up being like satanic worshiping cult. It always does circle back to Freemasonry, which anytime I've ever looked into Freemasonry, I've always it's I wish it was what they thought it was, but it's probably just a bunch of dudes trying to get away from their wives, and they got a secret club, and they just adults. But there has been like stuff told to me that has like I can neither confirm nor deny that like fraternities are like a subset of Freemasonry. And so and they have like secret language. They have like coded language. So if me and you are in a big in the same fraternity, big T, and I don't know you, but I recognize that you in a same fraternity me, I have like coded language to say to you, and I'll say something to you, and then you're supposed to say something back, and then we're talking on our little secret clubhouse language. And then because of that, like you're supposed to help me get a job. Like that's one of the degrees. Alleged. This is all alleged because I can't confirm nor deny. This is just what I've done my little research and what people have told me. But yeah, people see numbers and shit everywhere all the time. And that's why I want to create have a podcast where we just make a fucking conspiracy. We could connect so much shit. That would be fun as hell.
look, we need to pick a date that we're going to do that, like a month out, and then get to work on it.
I'm in. All right. We'll hit the group chat. I'm in.
So I don't know if we
But
want to
is
do that during football season or maybe after, but pick a date and then give us a month, and we'll do that.
got you. Is there any more information about this shooter? Did he have a manifesto? He just shot himself? He didn't shoot nobody else?
No, he
No, he
killed
did. I
um
think three other people.
four people.
A cop, a woman who worked at Blackstone,
Stone,
and one other. I'm not
and I
sure.
believe it's two women that worked at Blackstone. It's two
So he
women and two men, I believe.
he killed four people and then killed himself and didn't have any kind of no written letter, no manifesto, no reason for doing it.
I don't know yet.
It appears as though he was going after employees at the NFL.
I had heard that. Yeah.
Well, how do we know that?
Oh, found with note blaming NFL for giving him CTE.
Oh, well, what's his name?
Shane
Let's see.
Tamura. He didn't play in the NFL, but he was
So what?
blaming the NFL for him having CTE.
I believe it said he just played like in middle school or high school.
And so he shot himself in the heart. Um, okay. I guess it's an ongoing investigation. That shit is sad, man. Bro, if you want to be a dipshit to yourself, man.
Please
God, I
study
hate that.
brain for CTE. I'm sorry. The league knowingly concealed the dangers to our brains to maximize profits, the note read.
That is facts. Um, there is an ongoing litigation that the NFL is involved in that they have been accused of manipulating um people's when you retire you get like certain benefits or you can qualify for certain benefits. Um, but you have to go through this rigorous testing. So they are being accused of manipulating doctors, paying off doctors in order to say that people are not as bad as they're claiming to be so that they don't have to pay the benefits. This is an ongoing civil litigation. So, um, from what I've seen in the evidence, it does look damning. And I know one of the lawyers involved in the case, and he's giving me uh, a lot of the evidence, and it don't look good, man. It don't look good. But no, I guess it's not surprising that excuse me that case isn't getting a lot of publicity.
And I'm
But
sure all that
yeah,
happened. You
what's
just,
that?
I have no doubt all that happened. That doesn't
Right.
mean you get to go kill people.
Oh no, no. So
No,
well,
I
this is
understand.
probably
I'm just saying that
yeah.
his reasoning is nonsense.
Well, his reasoning for blaming the NFL, I would probably believe is nonsense. If so, do you remember there's a Texas shooter in Austin that
Yeah.
yeah. So for people that know, there was a Texas shooter. It was in Austin. He climbed up to I don't know, some tall place, and he just started picking people off. And he left a note that said, "I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, study my brain. Like, something's wrong. Something's wrong." And they found out that there was a tumor pressing on his, I think it was his medulla oblongata or something like that, which is like it heightens aggressiveness and violent thoughts or whatever. And so, while yes, you're right, it doesn't give you the right to kill people, but it's another factor in which I wouldn't necessarily believe in free will. And this is an extreme case, but if if our brain controls our activities and there's literal anatomy in our brain that says that is telling us to do something or forcing us to do because of the chemical brain structure, I find it hard to believe that people can choose not to do whatever
But that's
our
an
wiring.
exception to the rule. The rule is your brain, for a lot of people, functions normally, does what it's supposed to do. That is an aberration that happened to someone that caused them. And even then, I think that is a separate free will argument. If you have something, a tumor or whatever that is pushing on your brain, like, is that still free will? That's an interesting argument, but that doesn't cover like a normal brain.
Why not? How do you differentiate the two?
Well, one has like I said, an aberration that's not supposed to be there.
How do you define supposed to?
The brain as it is normally constituted.
So do you, this is a genuine question. Can you control your thoughts?
Yes and no.
Give me the reasoning for the yes and then the reasoning for the no.
When you say control your thoughts, do you mean everything that pops into your head?
Are you in 100% control of your brain activity?
Of your brain activity? No. Can you control your thoughts? Yes, to a degree. Like if you think of something terrible and you're like, "Oh, I don't want to think about that anymore." You can go listen to music or whatever to distract your brain and take it elsewhere. That is you taking control of the activity going on in your brain to think of something else. Now, there was a thought that popped into your head involuntarily
Okay.
that you no longer wanted to think
Walk
about.
with me there. how does a thought that you clearly don't want to have in your head pop up involuntarily if you have free will? If you are in control of your thoughts, emotions, and decision making, why would you decide to have a thought pop up that is unwanted?
I think you're conflating free will with, you said decide to have a thought. Like I just said, sometimes you can think of something without wanting that to happen necessarily. Let's say
Well, this
you do
that's
you,
the premise of my point, though.
but
My
do you
premise is
think anyone has ever thought about, I should go out there and shoot a bunch of people, and then later thought better of it and not done it? I would venture that has certainly happened.
yes,
I
I
would
would
so
agree.
I would say that is someone exercising free will. They had a thought to do something terrible and then thought better of it and decided not to do that.
So conversely, if somebody thought about going out and shooting people and executed it, is that an act of free will as well?
Yeah, they chose to do that.
With the caveat of unless there is a malignant tumor pressing on a
I
certain part of the brain
I
that
don't think that disproves free will. I think that's a mitigating circumstance that can make something more likely to happen.
right. And so what I'm trying to get down to is like this is why I asked if you have thoughts that pop in your head that are unwanted, right? We agree that they're unwanted. You're I'm interested into why you differentiate thoughts that pop into your head to to um actions
Well, I think
because it's coming
actions
from
are
the
more.
same it's deriving from the same place. It's deriving from the brain. Now, this is why I would say to go a little deeper, let's go a level deeper. The reason why people choose to do different things is because of their experiences, right? Things that you came in contact to, people you've known, lessons you've learned, right? I would agree with that. But I would also say in that same vein, that is and that was also out of your control, right? So let's say we have two separate shooters. This is very extreme uh analogy we're using, but let's say we have two separate shooters. One was raised well, taught all the great things, yada yada yada, good role models, yada yada yada. Has a thought that pops in his head that I'm gonna go shoot people. Thinks back, has empathy, had a mother that loved him, yada yada yada. Says, you know what? I probably shouldn't do that. I should probably go seek help for these thoughts that are popping in my head. Another shooter, same vibe, has a thought that pops in his head, grew up abused, grew up in drug infested homes, or people that didn't love him, yada, 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 abandoned, says, fuck it, I'm taking somebody with me. So those two people had the same thought pop in their head. This is an analogy. One's environment led him to make a better choice than the other. I argue that that is a tenet of free will is your environment. The environment that you're placed in is also out of your control. So brain chemistry, which I would say that we have no faculty outside of brain chemistry and environment to make a decision. And the decision making from an environment and a brain chemistry point of view are both out of our control. Does that make sense?
I think you're describing plenty of things that makes something more likely. Like if you the way you're raised and grow up, where you grow up, obviously that all has plenty of influence on how you make decisions, how you go through life. But that doesn't take away free will. I like okay, take
How do you define free will? Like, what is your definition
your
of free will?
ability to make your own decisions about what you do. I mean, just at any like take yourself or me. I'm sure we've both, as I'm certain, you have thought before I shouldn't do this, and I think
I have.
about whatever thing. And I think plenty of times you have done the thing that you knew you weren't supposed to do, or sometimes you have said, I shouldn't do that. I'm not going to do it. You've made
Right.
each decision with the
Yes.
same amount of information.
Yes.
So how would you say that that is not free will? You've made both. You've chosen both. It's not like each time you've done the same thing.
All right. So I loosely explained that, but I think this is the disconnect. The disconnect is what I'm saying is I don't see another faculty outside of your environmental factors and and the genetics that made your brain chemistry, right? Outside of those two faculties, there is nothing that you're making a decision, that there's nothing that's allowing you to make a decision. And what you're saying is there's free will. And I'm saying, Okay, but what is that, right? I'm saying give me something outside of those two faculties. Well, I made this decision because of free will. And what I'm saying is we both agreed that we make decisions because of our environment and how our brains are wired. And I'm saying I agree 1,000%. But what you're saying is, yeah, but you have free will. And what I'm saying is free will is the illusion of choice. Free will is something that it makes you feel like you have a choice. But at the end of the day, everything that you've seen, everything that you've encountered, experienced, on top of how you were already wired, give me something outside of that allows you to make a
I think
decision.
it's mostly inherent. I don't know that it's tangible, but I would say
I agree. I would agree.
so. Take somebody growing up in the worst neighborhood in America, whatever that is. Everyone
Mhm.
around them is in a gang making bad decisions. They commit crimes, whatever. But this guy's like, you know what? I'm going to take school really seriously. Grows up, becomes a doctor, whatever. All the decisions that guy made were antithetical to what he was growing up around, his environment. But he made a conscious effort to buck that trend.
Mhm.
So how do you explain things like that? Or similarly, someone who grows up with a great parents, great home, fucking very rich, whatever, and then becomes a terrible criminal, does terrible, awful things.
No, I would agree with all of that. I would argue that you can have two people with dissimilar brain chemistry in the same environment, which we all have a mental fingerprint, if you will. We're all wired differently. We could come from the same parents and we're still wired differently. So we could have dissimilar brain chemistry in the same environment, and we would react to it differently. And then every subsequent action changes our pathways to making future decisions. And what I don't think we like, I guess 100% like are seeing eye to eye on is I do agree with what you're saying. Environment, how somebody thinks. I argue that both of those are out of our control. That we don't have any control of that. My proof of that is you have the most strong-willed person in the world. He gonna have a thought that pops in his head that's out of his control. That's how you're wired. That's how you just wired like that. Your environment changes the way you think. I'm saying outside of environment and brain, what allows you to make a decision outside of those two things? Is there anything that
What
you
do you
can
mean
point to?
outside of environment and brain? I think brain is doing a lot of work there.
The way you're wired, the way your brain chemistry is wired. When you are born, your neurons are firing, right? They're working in a certain way. You start to develop thoughts, you start to think for yourself, and you start to view the world and in your through your own lens and through your own world. That is your brain chemistry. Like for an example, right? If schiz if the brain tumor is too like okay, that's a very specific case. Let's go to like schizophrenia, right? Schizophrenia, they see the world in a different way. They hear things that the rest of us don't hear. They see things that the rest of us don't see, right? That is another way with it's brain chemistry. It's another extreme case. Let's go to a less extreme case, but still impactful. Somebody who's bipolar, right? Let's go to another one that's less extreme than that. It's just borderline personality disorder. And you can go down the line of the spectrum of how people's brains are wired differently and coupled with environment. So that's what I'm saying is outside of how your brain is wired and outside of your environment, I don't see how there's a way to make a decision. When you invoke free will, you're saying I have the power to change the thoughts. And I don't see that as the case.
I don't think I say you have the power to change thoughts. I think I'm saying you have the power to choose how you act upon thoughts.
Yeah, I think we're missing each other. That's okay. That's normal.
What missing each other where? I understand what you're saying. I think there is more to I think you're
Give
just
me something outside of brain chemistry and environment that allows Big T to make a decision.
I think it's
Your
inherent. I think it's just something that
but see,
exists. I don't
that's doing a lot of caring. In
but
Aaron,
but you're certainly describing factors that make something more or less likely. 100%.
I
If you're
yeah,
but you can
I think
choose
we
to
live in a world of probability. I think
okay,
if you're
and
born in
I
this
would not
environment,
disagree with you about that.
So give me something outside of those two factors that allow you to make a decision. Because you're saying I have free will, and I'm saying you do not. Because are you in control of how your brain is developed out of the womb?
No.
Are you in control of where you are born and the environment that you're placed in?
No, not really.
So to me, there is nothing free about that will. You are placed here with your pre-existing genetics and your pre-existing environment. So whatever you were going to be, you were going to be. And you're saying, well, no, I have a choice. And I'm saying, how can you make a choice out of with those two things that are cement block foundation?
You're
And how do you
saying
think?
very specifically when you say what you're going to be,
Mhm.
you mean the way you're formed as a person, the way you are taught to make decisions, things like that. All of those 1,000% play a role in how you think and how you act and how you live. But you still have the ability to make choices.
So
Like I
that's what I'm
said,
saying.
would this not necessitate someone who grows up in a terrible area, terrible environment, no parents, whatever, like some of those
They're
people.
wired differently.
But
They're
that
wired different. You don't disagree, or do you disagree that people have like a genetic mental fingerprint where everybody's wired a little differently?
sure.
Would that not necessitate different different reactions to environmental stimuli?
Yes, but has bad people make good choices and good people make bad choices all the time. Very contrary to what their upbringing and things like that would be.
Understand? I'm saying, what outside of environment and brain chemistry can make a choice?
I think
Because
to
we
answer
this is
your very specific question, which I think is a little unfair, but the answer I would give is there is nothing else that can from the way you're describing it, there is not much else that can inform your decision.
agreed.
But you can still choose to make a decision.
Yeah, we were almost there.
No, I just I totally
So,
understand what you're saying.
right. I think people that believe in free will can't, and it's rightfully so, right? This is why Einstein said it. Einstein said, free will is an illusion, however persistent. People that believe in free will, I think, have a they can't come to terms with the fact that they are not in control of their lives. And I understand that because I feel that at times. I do feel that at times. But I when I just think about it rationally, nobody I've talked to like scholars about this that are on the deterministic side and people who believe in free will. I've read books, I've read literature because I really want to know what the case is. And people that it boils down to me, the people that believe in free will invoke either one, a higher like a deity, right? And in that case, and that's why I enjoy these conversations like a lot. But once you invoke a deity, like they always say, your arm's too short to box with God. You can't convince somebody that's convinced of a deity. And then I say, okay, well, that's the conversation for me ends there because
I think
I can't.
my belief in free will is completely
No, no, no.
separate from a
I was
belief
I
in
was
God.
I wasn't saying it was. I
I
wasn't saying it was.
understand. I'm just telling
All
you.
right, got you. So in my experience, it's either a deity or it's they cannot accept the fact that they're not in control of their decisions. And because it's like, well, okay, then what are we doing here? Like, what's the point of anything? And I understand that notion as well.
So then how do you account for someone making a decision totally antithetical to everything they've ever learned, everything they know to be true? Let's take a very small stakes example. You're a baseball guy.
I am I'm one of the biggest baseball guys there is.
Okay. There's a pitcher out on the mound. It's 0-2.
Mm-hmm.
Catcher calls a slider. He knows this batter can't hit sliders. He knows he should throw a slider out of the zone, but he's like, fuck this. I am going to give this guy a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, and he's going to swing and miss because I fucking can, and I'm a good pitcher. And he shakes him off. Guy calls slider again, shakes him off again, finally throws a fastball. He knows he is not supposed to do that, but he wants to anyway. So what causes that decision?
I would argue. I mean, I don't. and it's hypothetical. There's no way of me actually knowing, but I would argue that more than likely it is his experience. Maybe somewhere in his background, he in Little League, he had a guy who couldn't hit the fastball, and he knew he should have thrown a fastball, and instead he threw a slider. So in his experience, this scenario, maybe it worked for him at one point, or maybe it didn't work for him at one point, but somewhere in his past, his experience, a coach told him, hey, if this comes up, this is what you should really do. There's some kind of like data point where he invokes his experience and says, I know better than to do what I'm supposed to do, quote unquote. And so I would chalk that up to environment. His environmental factor informed his choice. And so, if, like I always say, I can pick up this water bottle if I want to pick up this bottle. But when it comes to making decisions, I believe every decision is a subsequent decision from the past experience or past reaction. And a lot of your reactions are out of your control. Like you agreed to, like a thought popping in your head that you did not want, that is an unwanted thought, that's just out of our control. I believe that pretty much everything is out of your control. Um, and
Okay, so what informs a decision of something that's never happened to you before? Like I'm trying to think of an example.
I think that's a great point. I think that this is where we would probably not agree on like reality, right? I think we evolved over millions of years from ancestors who roamed plains. And so, for example, there's a reason why you're scared to go in a cave. You're scared to go in a cave because our ancestors, long back in the day, they would enter caves and there were beasts in there that would kill them. So we developed a response to have a fear. There's something in us that says don't go in there. That's a fear response that has been left over through evolutionary um, experiences. We have appendages that are still left over from evolutionaries that we don't use. So I would argue that if you've experienced something, or if you haven't experienced something, and you have to make a decision about it, I would argue that's where your nature comes into play and says somewhere down the line of our lineage, this has happened and this is why I react the way I react. And you either react appropriately or inappropriately, but this is the law of the land and what we call nature. It's the reason why things exist in general. Is nature selects for good genes in their environment, and what I mean by good is uh environmentally advantageous, right? A coyote changes color, an orca changes the color of his back so that when it's on the bottom it looks like light, when it's on the top it looks like dark. So those kind of evolutionary changes are advantageous towards whatever creature's evolving. That's where we would probably part ways, but I would say that would be more likely to be the reason as to why he would make a decision to an experience he hasn't had before. But
But I think you just mentioned something that you hadn't mentioned before. You were like, it's your environment and your like are you lumping that in with just how your brain is naturally conceived?
what do you mean?
Like you said nature. Because previously you said the only things that can inform a decision are your environment and your brain chemistry.
Yes.
But you can say brain chemistry to mean a lot. And it sounds like you just also used it to mean like a naturalistic instinct, I guess.
So when I said, well, yeah, that instinct comes from, again, it's like, so when you understand evolution, evolution is creatures adapting to their environment, right?
Sure.
And so that's what natural selection is. Natural selection is your genes over time evolve to either advantageous or not advantageous traits to interact with your environment. The not advantageous traits that creatures evolve, they'll die off. The advantageous traits that creatures evolve, they'll survive. And so when I say nature, I'm describing that process. The process of people choosing correctly and genes adapting appropriately to the environment, that is the process of nature. And so I'm not invoking another element. I'm describing the process that is Like I think a lot of the times because we live in this high technological society, we forget or we don't feel like we were evolved from roaming plane creatures, but we were, and a lot of those traits are still there. I think it's why anxiety is a thing. I think I heard Rogan say it one time, and I agree with it. Is like if I don't think we're meant to just sit down and be at a desk all day. Like we got to be active. Like that's why after you exercise, you feel really good because we were hunter gatherers. We ran, we chased, we got chased, and if that dormantness is not, I don't think natural for us, so to speak. But I can talk about that shit all day, dog. I've read a lot of literature on it. I love talking about that shit. Um,
I
it
feel
is
like every time it's only you and me here, we end up talking about that.
You know why? I think because we have opposite worldviews on almost everything, and the our basic conversations boil down to these things like a shooter. Why would you shoot? Boom, it'll come down to free will. Boom, it'll end up coming back to God. Boom, it'll come back to healthcare, whatever the case may be. Because I think PFT does a good job of riding the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let me shout out to him. That's why, he's been doing what he's doing for a long time. And staying neutral pays off, baby. I can't do it though.